Welcome to a Junior VC Unfiltered. This is our first episode that will be broadcasted on the Founders Unfiltered podcast channel on YouTube. I'm your host Mazin, and I have with me Aviral, Bhumika, Raj, and Shreyans. In this episode, we'll discuss our latest piece: Can India's fastest unicorn win the infra market? Aviral, can you tell our listeners why we chose to write about Infra.Market this week?
Um, yeah, I think there's so many unicorns being created right now in India. It's becoming a little tough to keep up. But Infra.Market is a very interesting company, primarily because you would expect the fastest unicorn to come from edtech, fintech, e-commerce, some of the largest categories. But surprisingly, Infra.Market is a unicorn that is the fastest ever in India, and that's why we chose.
Thanks. It certainly is an interesting story. Bhumika, can you tell us how Infra.Market got started and what problem are they solving?
Sure, Mazen. Their founding story is very organic. Souvik Sen Gupta had been working in the finance division of a company that was in the construction space, and Aditya Sharda had spent more than like a decade, part of it even as an entrepreneur in the construction industry. And even though Souvik was not directly involved in the buying functions of his firm, it was clear to him that the sector was by and large unorganized, and in general, it lacked standardization. One of the key observations that led him down this rabbit hole was that on average, only around 15% of the raw material required for any construction project was readily available across the country. And the rest of the stuff was anything between kind of and extremely hard to source. So this led to the discovery that there was a huge mismatch in demand and supply, and even geography had a role to play in it. Once and Aditya had decided that they were going to solve for this market and go on to start up in the space, they focused on keeping it simple. And the average assumption is that starting up is a glamorous deal, and in India the expectation is that the founders have set shop in Bangalore, have kicked off a pilot run in HSR within months of operation. But Souvik and Aditya were not our typical founders in that sense. They began operations in 2016 in Thane, knowing that it was the right place for them to find the optimal mix of local manufacturers and contractors and raw materials. They didn't even branch out of Maharashtra before they received their first check, which was in 2019, I think. Circling back to the problem that they were trying to solve, technology was changing like almost every aspect of our lives, and the real estate industry had like all kinds of benefits to take away from that. But procurement, which was a core activity in from the real estate perspective, it was left largely untouched. The of the real estate industry is an amalgam property technology. We'll notice that prop tech had like a lot more interest and a lot more disruption from players like Magic Bricks, 99 Acres. Then there were data aggregators, online financing offerings, and the likes. But construction had been lagging behind. And the founders noticed that it was a continued problem, as in there were challenges in every step of the way. To begin with, there was a lot of idle manufacturing capacity, so only a fraction of the output was being supplied. And even with this output, it was like mostly a large player who would win the bid, and then they would pass it on to a contractor. The contractor would pass it on to some distributor, and then the distributor would have to hunt for manufacturers to give the order to. And these manufacturers would find it difficult to meet the demands from the orders because they were so varied. So Infra.Market wanted to circumvent this convoluted process and make it simple. They wanted to directly connect local manufacturers with project demands. They began by raising 10 million rupees from family and friends in around, I think, 2017. And they remained bootstrapped for the next 3 years. And among their goals was to remain profitable every year steadily. And they did that quite.
From those humble beginnings and tackling a huge problem, Raj, can you shed some light on Infra.Market's business model, and how did they go from what Bhumika described to 50 million in ARR, and how did they hit that landmark?
Absolutely, Martin. So at the heart of it, Infra.Market is an online B2B procurement marketplace, right? And what it does along with the online facility is that it allows a full stack technology services, doing a balancing act between demand and supply. Essentially, let's understand how the demand side works and how the supply side works, and how essentially Infra.Market comes in to combine these two to create value. Essentially, on the demand side, there are large contractors and builders in the construction and infrastructure space who would essentially bag real estate or construction projects. And for them, managing this entire timeline of project delivery as well as ensuring a quality output becomes a headache, more so in tier 2 and tier 3 cities where there are small fragmented manufacturers. Now, on the supply side, you have a fragmented set of players, manufacturers who would essentially have a lot of uh, idle capacity as well as very low focus on quality, and essentially the economies of scale would not be driven at the scale at which they're operating. Infra.Market would come in and then they would aggregate the demand to pass it on to supply and keep a very strict check on the quality, timelines, as well as provide small manufacturers with an affordable credit and financing opportunities which previously weren't present to them. With this balancing act, they soon found that winning projects became easier, and then a lot of small manufacturers in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities won international clients going to Singapore, Dubai, and Bangladesh. Essentially, this focus on tier 2 and tier 3 cities becomes very important because that is where the maximum value creation happens. And to understand how much value has essentially been created, the first round of financing essentially was in 2017 when they reached, as Bhumika mentioned, a crore from friends and family. And after that, the seed round happened in August of 2019. Post that, when they delved into this sort of a fragmented market, the Series A was very quick, essentially within a span of 6 months. And then, uh, before COVID struck, they were at an ARR of 100 million, $100 million. Apologies. But then, when COVID struck, it essentially cut down their business to almost half overnight. But then they bounced back very soon. And by before the end of the year, they were doing more business than pre-COVID levels, and now they are at a 180 million ARR. So all of these things combined, we see that at the core of Infra.Market's value offering is that the demand, which was previously uh, the demand coming from contractors and engineers who previously had found it very hard to focus on quality as well as maintain tight delivery timelines, when they coordinated with Infra.Market with an essentially delightful customer experience, Infra.Market would balance the demand act with the supply act that was actually lying idle.
By balancing both the supply and demand side and bringing the marketplace together, Inframat was able to create a lot of value. Shreyans, can you tell us where Inframat is today, building on what Raj described, and can you tell us what the future holds for Infra.Market?
Sure. So they showcased what exactly Infra.Mart has done in a space that is usually non-technical. And I can say this because I am in that industry. I was in the industry the longest of the time. So Infra.Mart actually, is a business that was basically at the desperate need of this country. Much of this industry is unorganized. It is run by cartels, governments who have almost a lot of it controlled in their capacity. The earliest tech innovation in this sector I can remember of is actually India.Mart. India.Mart did kind of well in displaying these B2B, B2C's marketplaces for all these construction materials. But there's a lot of issue with IndiaMart, like most of the businesses realized in the recent, right? IndiaMart, you find there's a lack of homogeneity across sellers and brands. Logistics is an issue, a lot of fake listings. Um, and so Infra.Mart actually, uh, started basis on these theses. In 2016, right when India was entering this revolution of smartphone and internet, Infra.Mart had started, and then they did exceedingly well. They were profitable from day one, and kind of compete in this space. But in this space, we see they are not alone, right? You would find a few players because of the sheer value that is there in this market, the revenue that is generated in this market. You'll find a lot of players competing with each other, right? You have Infra Bazaar that mainly focuses on selling directly to the consumers and medium-sized clients in terms of construction projects, right? They also sell different kinds of materials like electrical materials as well. Um, and apart from that, they also do financing for heavy machinery procurement, which is kind of hard. Um, Industrial supplies have been taking care of industry buying, and you'll find them moving at a rapid pace as well. But Infra.Market is kind of different, and that's what makes them stand apart, and that's why their valuations have been respected, and they have been appreciated so well. Apart from selling to businesses B2B and large scale projects, you'll find Infra.Market actually have setting up this whole software hub that you see of late. They have tied up with a lot of retailers across India, and their notion is basically to distribute to the retailers directly. Now, remember what I said about the industry being controlled by a few people and the government. So Infra.Market is actually trying to disrupt that. It is directly saying that, boss, I'm going to be the middleman now, and I'm going to distribute to the retailers, and I'm going to have the software package set up with the retailers, and I am basically, being this middleman who knows what the retailer in India actually requires at a given point of time. So they have tie-ups with all the big cement, players in the country. You name it, they have a tie-up with them, right? And then they had tied up with most of these retailers, not just in the main cities, but their plan is also obviously to go to tier 2, tier 3 cities. And then they would know, okay, if this retailer requires X number of units, then I'm going to deliver to them. So they do have the software package, they have the predictive analytics done for that. And that's the future of Infra.Market in terms of what exactly you see it. So in 2020, like every other year, it had kind of a positive year for them, with the total revenues of about 350 crores. Their total expenses were 339, and majority of it were actually the cost of materials. And now you know why they're moving into a software domain as well, right? Because it'll be a lot more cheaper for them to produce software and probably earn more on that, of which about 9 crores of profit. There's another thing that Infra.Market has actually focused on, which is basically branding their own name on most of these materials. They are focusing heavily on private label brands, which said that they moved from about 40% to 70% 2019 onwards, which actually fetched them 15% more margins on their sales. And this actually led to the biggest event for them in about 4 years, which was the 100 million funding from Tiger Global. Tiger Global comes in all of a sudden and pours in that much money. Why? Because the company has been profitable and the company has a direction in terms of going to the retailers, which the other players in the industry have not thought of it. Either they are focused on selling it to small clients, selling to consumers, but they miss this golden charm of basically going to the retailers. So right now they are in about 4 countries. Their plan is to go to about 10 countries in about a year and a half. So before COVID, they had about 100 million ARR. Right now they have about 180, and they're focusing on 300 pretty soon by the end of financial year 21-22. So it is obviously on a right path for a country that is so disorganized in terms of construction materials. The future is obviously Infra.Market needs to stick on whatever they are doing in perspective of e-commerce and the software, which may be the tipping point for them, right? And most of the other companies also might even join them in building the software stack. But as I see, Infra.Market is well ahead in the race, and I wish them luck.
It's an amazing story. By democratizing the industry and Infra.Market has been able to create a lot of value, not just for themselves, but also for both sides. Thank you so much for tuning in to a Junior VC Unfiltered. Click on the subscribe button to stay tuned for more. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next week.